As I was about to enter the private room, I observed Iris clinging to my husband. With a flushed face from intoxication, she leaned in to kiss him. "Brother Miles, allow me to possess you fully once before I depart abroad. I assure you I will not disturb you thereafter." Others interjected, "Miles, just consent to her request. She is about to leave the country, surely you cannot let the young lady depart with regrets. Iris has served as your secretary for 5 years, even without notable achievements, her efforts merit this minor request." Amid the clamor, Miles did not evade her. The dim lighting cast an intimate glow as their lips met. I pushed the door open, and the lively atmosphere abruptly subsided. "Miss Iris surely does not wish to be a mistress. Shall we proceed with a divorce first?" Miles languidly raised his eyelids, retorting with a sneer, "Are you threatening me with divorce?" As a breeze swept through the hall, my heart felt as though it were gripped tightly by an invisible hand, each beat accompanied by acute pain. It is not a threat, it is consideration. Iris had been his secretary for 5 years, accompanying him to family dinners and business banquets. When rumors proliferated, Miles remarked, "I have no interest in those close at hand. Iris has a youthful, doll-like face, resembling a minor. Exploiting her would engender guilt. A secretary is merely a secretary, nothing more." However, his statements failed to alleviate my unease. I could discern that Iris held a unique significance to him. Witnessing this scene today proved to be the decisive factor that overwhelmed me. Suddenly pushed from behind, I lost my balance and fell to the ground, the Buddha amulet crushed beneath his foot. The crowd erupted in laughter as I rose, disoriented. Iris raised her charming face, revealing a pair of small canine teeth. "Mrs. Livia is actually a cripple." He gazed down at the person in his arms without offering a rebuttal. Miles carried Iris to the car and drove off swiftly. I stood in the cold wind, clutching the Buddha amulet he had once given me, tears falling unconsciously as the crowd whispered among themselves. Ben's car arrived, and he bowed with precise deference. "Madam, Secretary Iris is Director Sue's daughter. Miles is acting solely for the company's benefit, engaging with her merely as a formality. Please do not take it to heart." The scenery outside the window receded rapidly as I remained silent throughout the journey. Upon nearing home, I finally voiced a long-suppressed question. 3 months ago, on my birthday when he did not return, was he also engaging in a formality with Iris? For the first time, Ben's voice betrayed a hint of panic. That day, Secretary Iris fractured her leg, and Miles urgently summoned an expert team from Germany overnight. "It truly is not as you imagine." His words were abruptly cut off as a beam of headlights pierced the darkness, striking my eyes directly. I stared at the blinding halo, my throat constricted as if stuffed with cotton, struggling to breathe. "It appears he genuinely values this Secretary Iris." The group chat chimed incessantly. Miles's companions evidently had not yet recovered from tonight's gathering. "Miles is taking his paramour to Sonia for a travel wedding tomorrow. How devoted. Do you think Livia will actually divorce him? Let us place a wager." Their discussion grew animated until Miles sent a voice message, his tone languid. "It is merely a bluff, what is there to bet on?" Others concurred. "I see Livia as nothing more than Miles's dog. She may bark fiercely but dares not bite. A cripple like her, what prospects does she have without Miles?" Noticing the conversation increasingly focusing on my disability, he finally interceded unhurriedly. "Let us pause the chat. Iris is intoxicated and seems to have slipped in the bathroom. I will check on her." The group erupted in exclamations as I sat numbly through the night, as though transported back to that most despairing day a year prior, when I had been the principal dancer of the National Dance Troupe, leading numerous classic performances on stage. 1 year ago, while attempting to save Miles, I severely injured my left ankle. The nation's foremost doctors repeatedly analyzed the scans but ultimately concluded with a shake of their heads. No one could assure my return to the stage. They suggested that engaging Dr. McCann's German expert team for the surgery might elevate the success rate to 80%. A day later, my parents perished in a plane crash. In despair, I leapt from a building, only for Miles to grasp my hand firmly at the window's edge. He declared, "Your parents are gone, but I remain alive. If you dare release these hands, I will pursue you to the gates of the underworld to retrieve you. Do you see the illuminated sign of the art center across the street? I, Miles, vow to ensure that spotlight shines upon you once more. Count to 3. If you do not climb back, I will jump with you." Trusting him, I clambered back. Childhood sweethearts who grew up together, we sought warmth in each other, clinging closely. Opting for conservative treatment, I inherited my parents' shares in the GU group and supported his ascent to the presidency wholeheartedly. Yet, once in control of the GU group's resources, he became incessantly occupied, leaving no time to secure German experts for me. My return to the stage grew indefinitely delayed. After repeated concessions, the troupe's principal dancer was reduced to a cripple confined to a villa, desperately clinging to him. I despised Miles's infidelity, yet loathed myself even more for this state. Miles returned the following afternoon, a lipstick mark on his collar that he feigned ignorance of, as did I. Upon noticing the divorce agreement on the nightstand, he furrowed his brows. "She is about to leave the country, why fuss over her?" I indeed have no intention of fussing, so I plan to lend her the title of Mrs. Miles for a few days. I calmly presented the suitcase I had packed for him the previous night. "Enjoy yourself." He opened it, and a box of condoms fell from the corner. His dark, piercing eyes assessed me as though seeing me anew, then he smiled contentedly, embracing and kissing me. A wave of nausea surged violently to my throat. I shoved him away and rushed to the bathroom, vomiting profusely. "Filthy." His expression darkened instantly. "Livia, what do you mean?" A phone call interrupted, and his tone softened immediately. "Iris, what is it?" My gaze involuntarily settled on his face. Whatever was said caused his lips to curve slightly, his eyes tender and attentive. It resembled how he often gazed at me during our early romance. At some unnoticed point, his tenderness toward me had turned into condescension. This realization stung my nose, but I inhaled deeply, forcing back tears. "All right, I'll set off now." His focus shifted away from me as he closed the suitcase to leave. Holding the divorce agreement, I blocked the doorway. "For Iris's reputation, you should sign this." He signed without hesitation. "When I return, I'll arrange a travel wedding for you too." I hung the Buddha amulet around the neck of the stray dog Ben had adopted. Considering the divorce proceedings were incomplete, I refrained from blocking Miles's contact temporarily. That night, I packed and departed for a small town 50 kilometers away. There stood a 2-story house bequeathed by my grandmother, a home few knew of. As I stepped out, I encountered Ben. His eyes rested on my suitcase. "So late, where is Madam going?" My throat tightened, but I feigned composure. "The villa feels empty, I'm staying at my friend's for a few days." Ben called Miles. "Madam has learned that you arranged German experts to treat Miss Iris's leg." Miles paused briefly before responding irritably, "So what if she knows? Can she leave me?" "Madam has left home." "Left home? Where could she go?" "At most, she'll stay at Yvonne's for a few days." "Yvonne is my best friend." Ben fell silent. "Let her fuss, I'll return in a few days." I cleaned the house and sought employment, striving to keep myself occupied. I intended to litigate to reclaim the marital assets I had earned, yet resume after resume yielded no response once my disability was disclosed. That night, thunder and lightning raged, the bulb failed, and my injured ankle ached and swelled. In the past, Miles would apply a warm towel to it on every rainy day. Those memories engulfed me like a flood, persistent as a gnawing parasite. Each triggered recollection brought piercing pain. Tormented, I wept profusely in the solitary night. My phone screen suddenly illuminated, group chat messages incessantly appearing. Compelled, I gazed at the light, revealing a photo of a hotel bed strewn with rose petals and assorted lingerie scattered about. They were discussing Miles's wedding night. Miles is fulfilled tonight. Look at his eagerness, it seems Livia never satisfied him before. At that moment, Miles remarked languidly, Livia's disability limits her movements, I've long grown weary of it. Tonight, I shall perform admirably. This message was swiftly retracted. Shortly after, Miles called. I screamed in anguish, seized the phone, and hurled it to the ground, stomping on it and striking it with a chair until it smoked and silenced, yet my frustration persisted. Scanning the room, I grabbed a fruit knife from the table and aimed it at my wrist. Lightning illuminated the night as brightly as day, and the courtyard gate was pounded forcefully. I ignored it, but the knocking persisted. The rain is too heavy, my car has broken down, may I trouble you for shelter? I jolted back to awareness, hands trembling, gasping heavily. Opening the door, a man stood erect outside, his suit clinging wetly to his frame, holding an ineffective black umbrella, his knuckles prominent. He wiped water from his face, grinning broadly, little sister, it's your brother Zane. Stunned, I noted his sharp jawline and brownish eyes in the intermittent flashes of light. A blend of languor and sharpness defined him. Zane? Over the years, he appeared more mature outwardly, yet his speech retained its humorous flair. His grandmother was my grandmother's neighbor. We played together every summer as children until her passing during his high school years, after which we lost contact. I never anticipated reuniting under such circumstances. I stepped aside, and he entered unceremoniously, as familiarly as if it were his own home. Bulb burned out? I knew you'd be scared, so I came to protect you. He climbed a stool to replace it, while I held a flashlight below. He remarked casually, I saw online that you've been sending resumes, what's wrong? Has the Gu family gone bankrupt? Divorced. Oh, I see. Perhaps it was my imagination, but under the flashlight's beam, he grinned foolishly. Done. He switched on the power, instantly warming the house with light. Mind if I use your bathroom? I gestured invitingly. Moments later, he emerged with disheveled short hair, clad in my floral dress. His abdominal contours were distinct yet subtle, leaving me astonished. Embarrassed, he covered his chest, stomach, and groin. I chuckled. Never mind, staying at someone else's place inevitably requires some sacrifice of dignity. He straightened up and headed to the kitchen, soon presenting 2 bowls of tomato and egg noodles. Though my mood was somber and I hadn't eaten all day, assuming I lacked appetite, my hands acted before my mind, choosing to eat. The first bite of noodles carried my grandmother's flavor. Tears of grievance flowed uncontrollably like a broken faucet, while Zane clumsily wiped them away, rambling incoherently. Noticing my silence, he abruptly cupped my face. Did that Gu family kid bully you? I'll make a call and bankrupt them. I laughed through my tears. Do you really see yourself as a tycoon? He coughed twice, shifting topics. I read in German news that you retired due to illness. What happened? I sighed, it's a long story. I positioned myself to eat, preparing for a heartfelt talk, when the faulty phone emitted a shrill sound. Livia, why aren't you answering? Even a tantrum should have limits. Iris hasn't done anything to you. I nearly reacted instinctively, grabbing a chair to silence it, but a slender hand preemptively snatched the phone, unleashing a tirade. You wretch, is it filth or spittle spewing from your mouth? What? You howl like a rabid dog the moment the call connects. Didn't your mother teach you how to speak to people? Blocking you, what of it? Aren't you aware of your own sordid deeds? Your hide is thicker than a fortress corner, even cannonballs couldn't pierce it. And you call it a tantrum? Were it me, I'd have slapped your face long ago. Iris didn't touch her? Ha, your combined conduct would make flies hail you as progenitors. Bah, wretched thing. The phone, defective and unshutdownable, had its SIM card yanked out after the rant. He provided me a new phone, blocking Miles and all associated contacts. Leave the divorce follow-up to me. The sharpness inadvertently revealed in his words left me momentarily stunned. Thousands of miles away, Miles, embracing Iris, video chatted with his group, the call to Livia's other phone on speaker. He eagerly sought to prove to all that Livia would apologize tearfully, yet Zane's words left everyone dumbfounded. Livia had not only blocked Miles but had also found a formidable man. With such prowess, Miles paled in comparison. His expression soured. By the time he reacted, the call had ended. Redialing yielded only a shutdown tone, his gaze darkening, devoid of prior levity. Iris caressed his chest, her eyes seductive. Brother Miles, that man is likely a delivery worker Livia summoned to provoke your jealousy. Take it seriously, and you lose. Livia walks unevenly, fearing ridicule, and rarely ventures out, even delegating board meetings to other directors, thus unlikely to meet other men. That man was, at most, a delivery worker for her and Yvonne. With this realization, Miles dispelled his gloom. I'll make her face the consequences of toying with me. Miles took Iris to various attractions, posing intimately for photos that flooded the group chat, met with uniform praise. Deeming the timing apt, he spoke condescendingly. Livia, I'll grant you one more chance. Enhance my photos with Iris. If Iris is pleased, I'll overlook past grievances. After speaking, he sought Livia but found her unreachable. A timid voice interjected, Brother Miles. Livia left the group. Damn. Only then did Miles grasp the situation. Once, to assert my claim, I persistently begged for days to join his buddy group, never leaving despite fierce disputes or mutual Facebook blocks. After my disability, his friends' attitudes shifted. Subtle taunts, indulged by him, escalated to overt derision. My silence in the group fostered Miles's misconception that I could not leave him. Iris clung to his arm coquettishly. Brother Miles, I want the Buddha amulet around Livia's neck. Let's go to Thailand next. That amulet was my token of love to her. Are you worthy? Iris's fingertips subtly tightened. Brother Miles, I know you're worried. Worried Livia was deceived by a delivery worker. Let's return to the country now. That rainy night, I felt like a child who had found home, all the year's grievances pouring out like a flood. Zane sat across from me, giving me the illusion of a remaining blood relative in this world. I cried myself to sleep, a constant figure beside me, reminiscent of my grandmother watching over me as a child. Zane quietly closed the door and left. The rain outside was far less intense than he claimed. Passing the town, he saw light in the familiar small building and surmised Livia had returned. He stood under the eaves, half his face shadowed, making a call. I'm in Sanyang town. Yes, I've sent you the coordinates. Awakening the next day, I saw several Maybachs parked at the gate, realizing Zane was indeed a magnate. Men in black suits flanked the area silently, exuding a formidable presence. Livia, I'll take you to Germany to treat your leg, he said earnestly, a faint sorrow in his eyes beneath unkempt bangs. Okay. While awaiting the visa, Zane arranged for Beijing hospital specialists to conduct a preliminary diagnosis. The outcome was middling. The delay has been too long. Even with Dr. McCann's team, the odds of returning to the stage are only 50%. It hinged on whether fortune favored me. Zane was busy but chatted with me nightly, his humor often eliciting hearty laughter. At some point, the emotional wounds I feared to touch ceased to ache. Thoughts of Miles became trivial. Yvonne called, Livia, where are you? Miles has lost it. He's kidnapped me. Sob. Miles, don't harm Yvonne. My heart clenched, my voice trembling uncontrollably. Yvonne, my best friend, is plump with crescent eyes when she smiles and a buoyant personality, caught in this calamity because of me. Livia, come back, please. I promise not to hurt her, he whispered, as he did in our passionate days. Furious, I dared not provoke him further. Zane was in a company meeting. I informed him and arrived at the Gu residence with 2 bodyguards. After days apart, Miles looked haggard, his eyes lighting up upon seeing me. If you dislike Iris, I'll stop seeing her, don't be upset. He glanced at the man beside me, frowning discontentedly. Don't forget you're my wife, returning with 2 men, aren't you trampling the Gu family's honor? Ignoring his comment, I asked, where's Yvonne? He signaled, and the upstairs guest room opened, Yvonne rushing down with a thump thump thump. I sighed in relief, though her once plump face was now gaunt, contours faintly visible. Her typically well-groomed waist-length hair clung greasily to her scalp, dark circles shadowing her eyes. She appeared unwell. Yvonne pointed at Miles, accusingly. He lured me here, took my phone, and locked me up for 2 days. Ben respectfully offered a phone. She took it and dialed the police without hesitation. Miles strode over, knocked it from her hand, and sneered, blame Livia, her tantrum dragged you into this. Once again, he justified his actions by confidently blaming me, while most urged me to endure, claiming my shortcomings were at fault. I clenched my fists. Yvonne tilted her head, puzzled. You illegally detained me, why pin it on Livia? Then, realizing something, she exclaimed, I understand. She tiptoed, nearing Miles's menacing face, because you're a coward who only shifts blame. His expression shifted abruptly, raising his hand to slap her. I pulled Yvonne aside, backhanding Miles across the face. The air fell deathly still. Miles, I said calmly, we are divorced, you signed the agreement yourself. Confronting him directly for the first time was less daunting than imagined. After a pause, he laughed as if hearing a grand jest. A cripple like you, what can you do post-divorce? Rely on that man to support you with deliveries? Believe me, 1 word from me, and he's jobless. I regarded him quietly, a sense of bewilderment arising. Beneath the exterior I once loved lay such a deplorable soul. Return the Buddha amulet I gave you as a token of love. That amulet had once been my lifeline. Amid rumors of him and Iris, I lay awake nights, clutching it tightly around my neck as if grasping his promise, finding slight solace. Seeing my silence, he smirked triumphantly. You don't really want a divorce, do you? Ben, aware of something, looked resigned. Amid his awkward gaze, I pointed to Dayudiu playing on the lawn. Your precious amulet is there. Miles's fists clenched audibly. You gave my token of love to a dog? I stepped back. 2 bodyguards firmly shielded me from his glare, providing reassurance. Yes, you and your love are fit only for beasts. I left with Yvonne, Miles warning behind me. I was already arranging German experts for your leg. Leave this door, and you'll remain a cripple forever. Undaunted, I replied, spare me your concern. Stepping out the villa gate, the air felt fresher. Zane leaned against the car, speaking seriously on the phone, his demeanor stern. Seeing him, my taut nurse relaxed. Nothing in this world seemed capable of making me forsake life anymore. I ran toward him. Spotting me, he hung up and approached swiftly, grinning broadly. Weren't you in a meeting? Yes, I came after it ended. He ended the call, his smiling eyes warming my heart. Yvonne raised her hand weakly beside us. Hey, have you 2 forgotten I'm still here? Miles was detained by police for 7 days for kidnapping Yvonne. Upon the news, Gu Group's stock plummeted, evaporating nearly 10 billion in market value. Without my board support, his position at Gu Group grew precarious. Elders already displeased with his parachuted CEO role now stirred restlessly. Karma, it seems, is unfailing. The German visa was approved. Zane held my hand through the airport's VIP lane. I walked unevenly, but this time, no discomforting stares followed. Our entourage followed closely, their expressions grave. A mundane act, yet I felt tears welling, revealing that those who once mocked my gait were the truly flawed. Before takeoff, my phone rang incessantly with unknown numbers. I powered it off, reclining comfortably and feigning sleep. Miles refused divorce, forcing me to pursue legal avenues, all of which I entrusted to Zane. Before departing, I blocked Miles and all related contacts, though he clearly remained unwilling to relent. Zane was occupied, His family's business centered in Germany, though recently he seemed focused on domestic expansion. My surgery was scheduled a week later. Meanwhile, I tended flowers and fed fish in his villa to ease tension, though he appeared more anxious than I. On several late nights, passing his bedroom, I heard him on the phone, repeatedly confirming surgery details. The night before, he smoked on the balcony. Seeing me, he extinguished the cigarette and dispersed the smoke. "Brother Zane, if the surgery succeeds, how should I thank you?" He raised an eyebrow nonchalantly. "I see you as a sister, I seek no reward." I leaned closer. He averted his gaze, a flush spreading from neck to face. His brownish eyes cleared momentarily, like winter-frozen amber, but he soon regained composure, about to expound, when I turned away. "I'm sleeping first, don't stay up late." The surgery succeeded splendidly. That same day, the domestic divorce ruling arrived. Buoyed by dual joys, I confessed to Zane. He asked for time to consider, yet agreed within a day. 6 months later, I could perform basic stretches. Learning I'd stood again, my former domestic troupe invited me for a classic, low-difficulty theatrical dance. Zane had PR distribute clips of my past dances on short video platforms. The return of a former dance prodigy thrilled global audiences, bolstering my confidence. Yvonne called, reporting Miles and Iris's engagement, an extravaganza that topped trends. What going abroad? Just an excuse to snag a rich man, and Miles, clueless, fell for it. 6 months on, hearing his name stirred no emotion, just gossip on an ordinary afternoon. I stood on a domestic theatrical stage, Zane in the front row, gazing unblinkingly at my fluid leaps, filled with pride and relief. The performance concluded flawlessly, applause resounding, flashlights converging on me and the leads. I winked at the man below. Post-curtain, I awaited him backstage but unexpectedly encountered Miles. Recalling the Gu family sponsored this play, I wasn't surprised. I removed my makeup calmly, passing him with my bag. He abruptly seized my wrist, eyes bloodshot. "Wife." I spun, slapping him. "Enough already, you scum." Onlookers gasped. Some identified him as the Gu Group's CEO from the recent lavish engagement, but I was not that event's heroine. Ignoring the swelling slap mark and surrounding whispers, he stared obstinately. "Wife, I know I erred, can we start anew?" "I can explain everything." I sneered, exposing him. "Is it because Iris's father's shares are insufficient to sustain your presidency?" Pale, he countered, "Regardless, we married for love, how can you think this of me?" Unswayed, he moved to grab me, but troop ladies subtly shielded me. Grateful, I worried for them, given Miles's frenzied state. Through the crowd, I called to the hastening Zane, "Husband, please step aside, I'm saving my wife." Standing beside Zane, I told Miles, "He's the delivery worker you presumed we're marrying soon." I flashed my engagement ring. Zane kept a low profile, unrecognized by most, but Miles, as Gu Group's heir, surely knew him among peers. He was the exemplary child. Miles and I were childhood sweethearts. In the years we met Zane, we three were friends. After Zane's grandmother's death, our summer reunions ceased. Yet his family's commercial standing was formidable, his presence unforgettable. I never foresaw a reunion in such a scene. "But, you nearly lost your beloved dance career saving me, how can you forget that bond?" Miles's eyes reddened with tears, his tone aggrieved. Zane scoffed, "An accomplice feeling wronged?" Offering no explanation, he pulled me away. "The past is done, look forward and forget the vexations." Unwilling to elaborate, I suppressed my curiosity. He took me to meet his elders, uncles and aunts who seemed long aware of me, their warmth familiar. Later, in Zane's room, I found an album of my dances. His mother entered, exasperated yet amused. "After learning you couldn't dance, Zane returned overnight to take over the company, shifting focus to Germany, even clashing with his father. I knew then he had something on his mind." Securing Dr. McCann's team required not just funds but extensive German networks. Knowing Zane studied in Germany, I assumed the Fong family's German focus was natural. So, there were such complexities. He said he saw me as a half-sister. His mother smirked, that boy's quite the actor. On our wedding day, my phone received an anonymous multimedia message, 2 chat screenshots with Iris and Miles's avatars. The first, Secretary Iris, I dislike Livia dancing on stage, devise a way to keep her off it and wed me. Fine, I want a promise from Miles, valid forever once done. The second, Miles, I'm going abroad, I'll trade that promise for a wife experience, vowing never to bother you again. Agreed. The first screenshot predated my ankle injury, saving Miles by half a month, proof he'd been scheming. This was what Zane had withheld. Then Iris called, her once sweet voice now bitter and unhinged. Miles ended our engagement, are you smug? Let me tell you, your marriage was a sham. Why do you think the stage rigging fell? Even without your push, he'd have dodged. Haha. Oh. Not angry? No revenge? Shall I assist? No need, I've recorded evidence. The wedding proceeded smoothly. On the gleaming crystal floor, I glimpsed myself gazing gracefully at the approaching groom. Love had humbled and weakened me, being loved restored my confidence and strength. After my parents' death, I feared solitude, living, walking, flying alone, yet I never lacked the courage to escape hardship. During the speech, the formidable chairman grinned foolishly. My father-in-law sighed solemnly. After his grandmother's passing, he kept visiting Chengdu. I feared he preferred men. Post-wedding, I submitted evidence, suing Iris and Miles for harming me, refusing mediation outright. On trial day, Zane was tied up with a project. I arrived with lawyer, assistant, and bodyguards. Meeting Miles's entire family, parents, siblings, uncles for the first time, I realized they could communicate civilly. Ultimately, Miles received 3 years for intentional injury. Iris, an accomplice, got 1 year and 5 months. He was forced to relinquish the GU Group presidency to his half-brother. His friends approached me, claiming Miles never meant harm, acting from insecurity. Laughable, even judicially condemned, he deemed himself blameless. I cared not for his rightness, I only want him punished. Stunned, they mumbled apologies and fled. Turning, I saw Zane nearby. Weren't you in a meeting? Yes, I rushed over after. In crisp autumn air, I held his warm hand, kissing his lips' corner. Life's greatest fortune is setting wrongs right.